Hi everyone this lunchtime, and thank you for popping along for our Advice Line Live Q&A event today here on Facebook. My name's Sophia. I'm the Community Advice Services Manager here at Scottish Autism, and I'm joined by the lovely Caroline and Samantha, who are community advisors on our National Advice Line here at Scottish Autism. Thanks Samantha, thanks Caroline for joining me this lunchtime. Um, as always, for our Advice Line Live Q&A events, obviously we have comments that people can kind of submit throughout the event. You can also pop in your questions, and we will try and answer them as we go. But as always, we do have a few questions submitted for today, which I guess Samantha and Caroline, I know, will spend a bit of time talking over those questions. And we've got quite a nice variety in today, actually, in terms of questions. So whilst we're waiting for your comments and questions to kind of come in, we'll get started. So our first question is a question or a theme that we receive quite a bit through the advice line, and it's with regards to those teenage years and when puberty hits. But I guess the question that we've received for today is from a parent, and I guess they're asking, is there a way to get through to an autistic teen effectively? And I can imagine that's probably a question that's asked more broadly as well. But Caroline, I'm wondering whether you might have any recommendations or suggestions or things that this parent can think about in terms of supporting their autistic teen at this time.
Yeah, it's a really common question that we get in the advice line, and I think for advice line staff, it's always really good to, if we can, have a discussion with a family regarding what their concerns are. And I think from advice line perspective, it's really good for us to get an idea of the young person, their age, their ability, what they like, what they dislike, almost to give us a bit of kind of broader information, because often what we're not looking for immediately is a solution, but to understand the family and understand the young person, because they're pivotal to any kind of change as well. Samantha might have other things as well.
Yeah, also it's about thinking about communication, what's the individual's communication preferences, because communication plays a big role in everything that we do in life, and that actually does that young person like a lot of verbal communication? Do they like things written down? Could you put it like in a message? Could you have a little diary where you write back and forward to each other? It's really finding out, for that young person what that looks like, and that can look really quite different between individuals, which is totally fine. And also as well thinking about balance and energy as well. So being able to sort of pace yourself and balance, so then the things that you have going on in your life don't feel like you're doing too much or doing too little.
And I think pace and balance is probably quite important to kind of make sure that kind of balance is right for, I guess, the family, but also the young person who's in the center, I guess, of all of this. And I think, Caroline, you raised some really important points there in terms of that young person being the center of this kind of question. And I guess it's really important for us at the advice line to, I guess, have those conversations to understand where, I guess, things are at as a family as a whole, and also where that young person is at this moment in time, or has there been anything that's happened maybe few weeks, months beforehand that actually need to be taken into consideration. But communication as well, like you both said, is kind of, I guess, key as well, because it's something that's part of day-to-day life. But how can we support that in a way that's supportive to that individual? So like you say, Samantha, is it through kind of journaling? Is it through visuals? What is that kind of preferred communication method at this time? And that might change, is what I always say to parents when I speak to them, is communication can change over time. So it's thinking about in that moment, what is the most supportive communication method?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
go on, Caroline.
sorry. And I was also thinking as well, regarding a young person, often on the advice side, when we're speaking to families, when we're discussing a situation, or whether it's live chat or email, whatever suits that family, often we'll kind of try and work out with the family what has a young person possibly told us. So if they're maybe coming home from school, or they're saying, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, or whatever, but also so kind of picking up on what is a young person trying to tell us or is telling us, and actually starting to kind of take that is quite important, and even noting it down, because sometimes those subtle things are really critical to next steps. I don't know if Samantha's got anything else to add, like even like regarding the communication aspect as well.
I think it's also thinking about, what it means to actively listen, because sometimes people actually just want you to listen. They don't want suggestions, they don't want questions, they don't want you to problem solve. It's actually that they sometimes just want to know that you're sitting with them and that you're actually hearing what the words that they say.
Yeah, and I think sitting with them is that really important piece there. And I guess that's something that we do quite well within our advice line in terms of sitting with people in that moment. I know people have referred to our advice line, but also our other community advice services in terms of being, a boat in a lock that's kind of rowing beside them in that moment, rather than, I guess, taking over that boat in some respects. So actually we're kind of rowing alongside and may come and go as and when people need that. But I guess we sit aside people and we sit along people in that moment to understand that moment and to, I guess, give the best kind of advice, support and guidance that we can provide. So no, some really valid points there, and I hope that's helpful for the person that submitted that question. And I know Caroline, Samantha, one of you will be in touch with that person directly, I guess, to just, I guess, have more of a kind of conversation in relation to their question, because I'm sure that there's probably other things underneath and underlying within that question as well. So thank you, both of you. We have another question from a parent, but it's slightly different this time, in terms of regarding their adult son, who has received a late diagnosis in life. But I guess their question is predominantly about how can they best support their son again in this moment, and in this moment their son has left their employment, and live in quite a rural and isolated place with limited transport. And I guess, Samantha, I'm going to come to you at this point. Is there anything we can provide at, in response to this kind of question and query? I know it's quite broad. We don't have a location there, but what can we give this parent in this moment in time to be there for her adult son?
Yeah. I think it's trying to have a discussion initially in terms of what is their son looking for. So they mentioned that the individual has really received a diagnosis. They also have left their employment. So in terms of these things, are they looking for like post-diagnostic support? Are they looking for, there's also like peer support as well. So we don't have a location. So, we can reach out to that individual separately and, find that out and give them sort of more specific support advice in terms of, what peer support there would be in their area, if that's what that young person's looking for. But also as well, are they looking to get back into employment? Because there are things like supported employment as well throughout Scotland, depending on where they are. And also, do they maybe even want to volunteer? So there's things like Volunteer Scotland, Volunteer Matters. There's lots of different potential options, whether it's that looking for that more peer support and making connections, or whether it's maybe looking to get into sort of volunteering and employment as well. It really depends on really what the individual's looking for. There's lots of different avenues where we can advise around, and we'll put some links, into the chat in terms of what those potential options could be.
Mm-hmm. I guess, I'm just thinking about this particular question, obviously, in the mention of that this individual's left employment at this time. Now, people can choose to leave employment for various different reasons. But I guess, I'm mindful that actually in some instances, can it be a result of, I guess, that the job hasn't been quite right for them? It's been quite overwhelming. I know that we hear quite a bit from people through our advice line around kind of, I guess, that autistic burnout, that fatigue. And I guess, Samantha, I know this obviously wasn't part of that original question, but I guess can we give some people a bit of insight in terms of how we might support people that are experiencing kind of that autistic burnout, and things that might kind of support to, I guess, rebuild and scaffold moving forwards?
Yeah, I think it's about scaling things back so that if someone's got to the point of burnout, it's that, things have got too much at that point, and it's that actually what are the things that bring that individual joy, and trying to start from that point of view, what's the individual interest of that person, and looking at the small wins of what you can do each day. It's not about achieving lots of things, it's doing the very best that you can, and really thinking about things from really a well-being point of view. And then from that point, you know, thinking, right, these are maybe the things that haven't gone so well. So what can we put in place going forward? So then we're not feeling that we're getting to that burnout point, and we're able to maybe recognise before we get to that point. So it's just very, very small steps, and just trying to really find the joy, and just looking at, you know, what are your individual interests, even as a starting point.
Yeah. And I think some of the conversations that we have is, you know, with individuals sometimes is about balancing that energy. So what kind of takes away from your energy, but what adds to your energy? And when you're talking about those joy and interest, those are the things that can add to your energy. But I guess, you know, there are things in life that can draw from everybody's energy. So I guess, you know, through the advice line, I know sometimes we do provide a bit of support in exploring that in terms of what adds and withdraws from energy, and I guess giving people an opportunity to kind of explore that further. Is that would you say that's correct in terms of what you guys would support with through the advice line?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we definitely would say, because it's good being able to work out, you know, what are those battery drainers and what are the things that like increase your sort of social battery as well. And actually being able to work that out could really be helpful going forward for this person, or really for anybody to have that awareness.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think again for this one, this question, I'm sure again, Caroline, Samantha, you'll be in touch with this person directly to, I guess, find out the location, but to explore things a bit further, because again, I think there's probably a bit more context in relation to that question. And it's, you know, giving some time to explore that a bit further. I'm obviously keeping an eye on the comments and kind of any chat that's going on beneath the live stream just now. What I would say is if you've got any questions or anything that you want to kind of pop in the comments below, I am kind of keeping an eye on it. I noticed we haven't got any questions come in so far. So yeah, if you have got any questions, please pop them into the comments. And myself, Caroline and Samantha we'll do our best to answer those. But in the meantime, we do have one final kind of pre-submitted question. And I guess this question feeds on quite nicely from where we've just kind of left the conversation a bit in terms of employment. And again, we do get an awful lot through in relation to employment. And it, you know, I guess in this question, it's quite a long question, so we've kind of condensed it slightly. But I guess in terms of the question, it described a lot of changes that were due to take place within the workplace, whether it be within the environment or even possible changes to the person's role. And I guess for this person, they were worried that this change and uncertainty was potentially going to result in that feeling of overwhelm. And I guess where energy is being drained, you know, where we were talking about that energy piece there. But also they were concerned about their overall mental well-being and the impact that this change and uncertainty may have for them within their kind of role. So they're wondering if we can offer any guidance. And I guess, Caroline, I'm going to come in. What would be the starting point in relation to some of this?
I think if someone's reached out to the advice line, they've already made that big important first step. And so for a situation like someone asking about employment and being overwhelmed, I think the first thing is really to get an idea of what's going on for that person, to maybe kind of chat with them, whether it's on live chat or whether it's speaking on the phone, whatever suits them, or by email, just to get an idea of what their concerns, what is actually going on. And if it's things like exhaustion or whatever it actually is, to look at some ways to help them to understand what some of the issues may be, and not necessarily what the solutions may be, but actually what are possible first steps to these things, because you don't want to add to the overwhelm. Because if someone's feeling in a bit of kind of quiet distress, then I think to add to that is not really where we want to go. We want to kind of support and to listen to what they're actually telling us, and just carefully go through all the areas, whether it's employment, support, change, exhaustion, fatigue, actually going through it a wee bit systematically at their pace. It may take more than maybe one call, it may take more than one live chat, just whatever suits that particular individual. But I think just doing a wee bit and just going through it a wee bit systematically, but supporting that young person to go through, because there'll be quite a lot of issues. There's not just one by the sounds of it. So there's lots of kind of things that may need to be considered in the first place. But Samantha may have other things as well regarding the next few steps.
Yeah, and it's maybe thinking about, are there any adjustments that maybe need to be made for that person's role? So looking at things like reasonable adjustments, and what actually is meant by a reasonable adjustment, having an understanding of what that actually is, and what that could look like. So thinking about maybe in terms of what are the areas where you're finding things difficult or there's challenges, and then potentially thinking, right, what might be quite supportive in terms of moving forward with that work environment. So there are organisations like ACAS and things like that who can provide sort of advice around work and can kind of provide a bit more information in terms of reasonable adjustments. And we've got some links, we'll put some information into the chat as well. So yeah, it's really about thinking about reasonable adjustments and, maybe even access to work as well. Is there anything that access to work could do to support going forward? That could be another suggestion.
And I think so. Sorry, Sophia. I think as well. Sometimes regarding reasonable adjustments, sometimes people don't know what they might need. So I think it's such a kind of broad area, and I think people need a wee bit of support to understand what adjustments mean, but what the adjustments might mean for them. And Samantha might have other things to say as well regarding that particular bit, regarding understanding what reasonable adjustments are.
So we've got a little link that we'll put in that explains, what is meant by reasonable. So it's that idea that you can put forward what your adjustments are, and then it's that sort of conversation, with your manager within your role in terms of finding, what adjustments would be supportive. And it might be that some are fully able to be met and some you need to kind of meet in the middle. But it's that sort of discussion piece and that communication between you and your manager in relation to that.
Yeah, and I guess Caroline, you came in there where I was going to kind of make
Sorry.
that very similar point. No, it's fine. And I guess, yeah, what is a reasonable adjustment, and actually, where do I guess some people, where do they even start in terms of thinking about what that is for them? Because I guess everyone's reasonable adjustments will look different dependent on, I guess, what support is needed or what their experience may be within the workplace. And I guess, there are places like you say, ACAS, that can give you, I guess, the legislative piece in terms of what your rights are in terms of reasonable adjustments. But I guess if you're needing a space to explore what those reasonable adjustments might be for yourself, then I guess that's where the Advice Line team can come in really beautifully and spend a bit of time, I guess, exploring what that kind of workplace environment or what that role is like for yourself, and exploring kind of what is it that you feel you might need. Now, we can't say that those reasonable adjustments would definitely be agreed, but we can help you start to, I guess, unpack what that might look like for you to be able to then go and have, so you feel kind of, I guess, more equipped to have that conversation with employers, because they will ask, what do you need? Which is a very broad question. So I guess, yeah, that's where you guys at the Advice Line can support those conversations and unpack what that workplace environment is like for that individual and what the experience of that role might be for them. And I think that's the beauty of our advice services, is we can really kind of explore things on a personalized basis, to provide that advice and guidance that you may need wherever you are on your journey, whether you self-identify, whether you're on a waiting list, or whether you have that formal diagnosis. We recognize that needs like around employment or other things will always be there no matter where you are on that journey. So definitely that's what the Advice Line can support with.
Yeah.
I'm having a look at the comments. I'm not seeing any questions coming through. I do apologize if there are any and I've missed them. I guess for this lunchtime, in terms of yourselves, Caroline and Samantha, we've had some really interesting questions there that were submitted, before the event today, and obviously we've answered them the best that we possibly can with the information that we have. But I guess in terms of all those three questions, we will make contact with you directly, those that have submitted those questions, and we'll obviously, offer you the opportunity for us to explore those questions further. We can do that over the phone, email, live chat, whatever's most comfortable to all of you. But what I would say is, anyone that's watching and you feel that, once this event is over today, you do have questions or you're looking for some autism specific advice, support or guidance, please get in touch with our advice line. Our advice line is open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, 10 till 4, where you can give us a call or speak to us via live chat via the website. But there's always the option to drop an email out with those hours as well. The team do try and get back to emails as soon as they reasonably can. So yes, if you do have any questions, please get in touch with the team. You've met Caroline and Samantha today, who are very much part of that team. If you are in Fife, there's obviously our one-stop shop through in Fife. And Dundee, we also have our connection service, which is a hub specifically for autistic adults. So Caroline, Samantha, thank you for this lunchtime. It's been a pleasure having a conversation with you both. I enjoy these times where we come together. To those of you that are watching, thank you for kind of, I guess, coming in and watching us live today. I'm sure there'll be many people watching this later on in today, but hopefully see you all soon for our next Facebook Live event.